I've never heard that name before in my life.
Tell me about it.
Oh, come on then. Are we ready to go?
He tends to get ribbed about it like every Christmas.
Cool.
Did that all make sense what I said?
Are we rolling? Oh. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name is Such.
And my name is James.
It's Monday. It's the week that football starts again. Well,
lower league fans will disagree. Oh, that's bad.
Elite football.
Hold up. Scottish Premier League started this weekend as well, so you can't say that.
Oh, okay. The football that is played by the rich and wealthy starts at the weekend, the Premier League.
I don't think Saudi Arabia starts for a couple of weeks.
Is it not?
No.
So they still got time. I suppose they thought they'd wait till the end of our transfer window before starting their league so that they could maximise the poaching potential of all of the players in England.
Just on that, by the way, the Saudi Arabian transfer window closes later than the European one. It's like a couple of weeks after.
Yeah, so we can still sell them players. We just can't buy players.
And no one's buying players from there, are they?
No, you never know. There might be loans coming back this way. Ruben Neves, hello.
It's not going to happen.
Yet.
Newcastle don't need him at the moment anyway.
No, they keep... they picked up Harvey Barnes and...
Sandro Tonali and Elliot Anderson's looking good.
Right. What are we going to talk about today in this episode, in the lead up to week one?
We're going to talk about how much of a pay rise you're giving me and Nico after last week.
It was shit, to be honest with you.
Okay, fine. I want to start with thanking all the correspondents for their contributions last week. I hope you enjoyed Correspondent Week.
Did we get any new patrons?
Yeah, of course.
It depends. I'll give you 3% of the new patrons that we had sign up.
Okay, that's not really worth a dime bar to me. I want to start with some apologies. Thank you to the correspondents first. But in terms of starting the FPL conversation, I want to start with a couple of apologies. And the first apology is apology that I can't remember who I need to apologise to. But a couple of questions I've had recently have been about money and benchings. And I was asked, I think on an Ask James stream about 10 days ago, someone asked me about leaving 1.5 million in the bank. And I said, don't like that, because in principle, the idea would be that whoever's spending their money, and it's not necessarily recommended that you spend all your money at the start, will be starting with a stronger team than you. That's what I said.
Yep.
And I'm now currently sitting looking at my draft with 2.5 million in the bank and quite like what I'm looking at. And that obviously allows for moves, a number of them.
Yeah, and you've pre-booked in your transfers then at that point.
No. But that allows for flexibility, doesn't it? Which has come about primarily for me in terms of what I wanted with the injury of Christopher Nkunku. Jesus was not on my agenda, but Christopher Nkunku definitely was. And what I like most when I'm looking at it at the moment, and it's not to say I'll be in this position come Friday, is I've got 2.5 sitting in the bank, and that might be, what I start with. And that's with either John Stones or Ben Chilwell as first sub. And one of the other questions I had, and a few people have said, and even you asked me last week about benching Ben Chilwell in game week 1. I said, don't like that, just play him. Me and Gary discussed it on the Chelsea podcast last week. Just play him. But I've got 2.5 sitting in the bank, and I've got a coin flip between benching Ben Chilwell or John Stones as the example currently as it's sitting at. So I don't have mass needs to be spending this money, right? So those are apologies from me in the sense of what I always say every year is the game is different. And the game is different this year because it's landed like this. And essentially, if you're going without Mo or Trent, many of you are finding yourselves in this situation right now where the money in the bank allows flexibility. And sorry to the FPL listeners to reference Sky, but in Sky, if we knew what we wanted to do in 2 weeks and it was move João Pedro to Nkunku as an example, we'd just say, leave the money in the bank ready to make that transfer.
Yep.
So why do we frown upon it so much from an FPL perspective?
I don't know if we do.
If the best team that you can put together costs less than 100 million, right? And obviously the best team in game week 1 isn't necessarily a team for the rest of the season, right? We're not advocating leaving 2.5 as an example, and that's probably an extreme example, in the bank for several weeks on end. It's to allow the flexibility of fixture swings such as Chelsea, if you want to go back to an Nkunku, or move a 6.5 million midfielder up into an Odegaard or a Fernandes or a Heung-min Son or something like that perhaps you don't want at the start. There are cheap players at the likes of Brighton, which I'm currently finding it very difficult not to want to go with.
Yeah, the biggest downside with Brighton is rotation at the moment.
Of course.
Which is why I've still got 2 of them, but I've swerved the 3rd.
I take it the 2 is the obvious 2, is it?
Mitoma and Stupinan.
Yeah. João Pedro is going to be very, very popular in this next week, guys.
Yeah, him and Ciso, even adding Solly March. I think there's plenty of options there, but I just don't think I'm in a position to add the 3rd.
And if you go for that, rather than Nicholas Jackson, as an example, with money in the bank, that's it, isn't it? That flexibility of money, whether it's 1.5 in the bank, 2 million, 2.5, etc., allows you to do those sort of things. The instinct in us is sitting there with 2.5 in the bank. And I'm saying I'm possibly leaving a Chilwell or a John Stones on the bench in game week 1. People will be screaming right now, going, "Well, just buy Trent with that 2.5." I might be able to in game week 2. When I don't really want it in game week 1. If something happens in game week 1 at Chelsea, I'm looking at going, oh, yeah, sugar, he's got to go in for that Bournemouth fixture.
Sure.
That 2.5 sitting there.
Yep.
So the closer it gets, the more I'm thinking about flexibility and actually leaving an almost unthinkable size of money in the bank, because the best team I can put together, I think, currently for game week 1 has 2.5 in the bank and still has a 5.5 defender sitting on the bench. Yep. So, I mean, I could even, in theory, make that more. Go to a 4.0.
As it stands?
Currently, Pickford plus 4.0.
So you've gone with a cheaper goalkeeper. See, I've got a 5 million goalkeeper.
At time of...
trying to find out where basically your 2.5 is versus my 0.5 in the bank.
Which, the thinking with Pickford rather than Onana is not, I prefer Pickford over Onana. It's the Everton, Nottingham Forest rotation. So... Matt Turner agreement between Nottingham Forest and Arsenal is now in place this morning. However, I'm not certain it will go through quickly, because the interesting catch on this is Nottingham Forest play Arsenal on Saturday in game week 1, and Nottingham Forest have a goalkeeper problem as it stands. Do Arsenal want Matt Turner to make his debut against them?
Yep.
These things get written in the stars. You know what's coming, right?
Monday
Forest win 1-0. Matt Turner is man of the match. I think not somehow, but... yeah, it would probably be in Arsenal's best interest to wait a week, right? But if it goes through, that Pickford-Turner rotation is quite extraordinary in the sense that Pickford has a great start of fixtures in sort of the opening 10. And the 3 really difficult fixtures he has in those 3 game weeks, Nottingham Forest fixtures are Sheffield United at home, Burnley at home and Luton at home.
Right.
8.5 for the 2 keepers. So... it would be no Manchester United defence for me if I go down that route. So currently I'm looking at Gabriel, Stones, Chilwell and Estupiñán.
Okay, so I've got Trent over your Chilwell at the moment.
Yeah.
Chilwell's gone for me for my draft.
Okay.
And you've got a 4.0 in there?
Yes.
Kabore?
Would probably be the favoured one at my, particularly if I'm going a little with one really kind of strong backup, then I don't need to worry about that game week 2 blank. Midfield currently Rashford, Saka, Martinelli, Mitoma.
Foden?
I want him.
Okay.
But I don't know if I need to take the gamble. It's another one with the money in the bank. I could look at, right, Mitoma versus Luton. Okay, I'm clear on Foden now. Move it next week. A 4.5 midfielder, who actually I'd probably favour at the moment might be Pape Sarr, actually. Okay. Up front, Haaland, Watkins, João Pedro.
So you've gone heavy up top with João Pedro and Watkins. You've got 2 strikers where I've got a 4.5 and a 5 sitting there now.
Watkins is almost a definite for me.
But I've upgraded your Pickford to Onana. I've upgraded your Chilwell to Trent. And I've upgraded your 4.5 midfielder to Foden. And I've skimped out on the strikers.
What, you're about 3 million over budget?
No, I've skimped out on the strikers.
Okay. Oh, you're going 2 4.5s,
2 4.5 strikers. So my bench is 2 4.5 strikers and Kabore. And I'm lined up with Onana in goal, Gabriel, Estupiñán, Trent and Stones. So 4 solid defenders. 5 solid midfielders, Martinelli, Saka, Mitoma, Foden, Rashford. And Haaland as the single striker.
You've got, with the position you're in at the moment, game week 2, you've potentially got no bench.
I've got what?
You've got no bench. You've got Cabore's got no fixture, and the other two 4.5s. There isn't a 4.5 we could look at right now and go, it's definitely getting minutes.
Very true. After you'd recorded with Johnny, I think, I explored the idea of Foden over Mbomo more. Johnny was very bullish on Foden.
So am I.
So were a lot of people, to be fair. And it's a good price, Foden, 7.5. I was thinking, how do I get Foden in? And who am I willing to sacrifice from my existing midfield? It ended up being Mbomo as the one that I was going to sacrifice. Fine. So there's $1 million I needed to find. Who was my first sub that had any value? Chilwell. And at that point, I'm like 4.5. Well, I only need to go down by $1 million to from 5.5 to a 4.5. But then I thought, if I'm going this way, I may as well just go bottom out at 4 million. Especially if Kabore is going to be any good as an asset to have. And then that rekindled in me, like dropping to the 4.5 was like, reminded me about last year's strategy, which was just to skimp out the bench, not give a monkeys. And if it ends up being a 9 or 10 player game week, then so be it. It's a 9 or 10 player game week, but at least I've got 9 or 10 really good assets. So I'm not worried, if I'm honest with you, James. Like,
I'm not saying you should be worried.
Yeah, if I go into game week 2 with no bench and I end up with only 8 would be stupid, but 10.
Why do you want to put yourself in that position? It's not like
10 starters.
I know Luton and Burnley aren't playing, but it's not really a blank game week.
But it's not about the 3 or 4 players on my bench. It's about the 11 in the team.
No, but then I would feel better for you if you just went with, say, Baldock instead than Kabore. So at least you've got a cover. They've got Nottingham Forest away. It's not terrible. Just security-wise would feel better about it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there right now. He's a longer-term pick.
But yeah, so I understand what you're saying about money in the bank because I've got $500,000. Well, actually, if I got rid of Vinicius to a 4.5 and Bama or something, it would be $1 million in the bank. And that does give me options to move depending on who does do well. I'll have no Chelsea. You have no Liverpool.
Can't have them all.
You know, you can't.
But again, to come back to that flexibility, it's like, I think a lot of us went through this thought process with, say, Darwin Núñez a couple of weeks ago. And again, that money in the bank, starting with like a João Pedro and leaving it in the bank, if Darwin does well at Stamford Bridge and then it feels like, oh, wow, I need to get him in for the 1 week before maybe Nkunku's back in free, this is the sort of move I can make. And then also already having, say, a Chilwell in place makes the desperation to feel like I've got to thump free Chelsea in for game week 3. Well, it's not as severe, right? If I end up going into game week 3 with, say, Chilwell and Nkunku/Jackson, fine. Because I don't think it's a necessity to have 3. It's not a necessity to have 3 from anybody. The one that I left out, for example, me only having Marcus Rashford right now, is probably I've got less Manchester United than most people. Because a lot of people have Onana, a lot of people have Bruno Fernandes, a lot of people have Luke Shaw. I could go for any of them yet still. It's easy for me to go Matoma to Fernandes, money in the bank, and that's it, right? Still got 0.5 in the bank.
Yep.
But right now, I'd probably rather have Matoma in game week 1 is my take. And to be honest, unfortunately, like I was really keen on saying Siso, but exactly what you said with Brighton, like it's quite cloudy. So I'm
the pod with Sam didn't help in any way, shape, or form.
No, that's nothing against Sam. It is cloudy with Brighton assets.
I mean, I feel like the most nailed on or potentially talismanic might be Mitoma, and even he has a dinger or whatever.
He hasn't scored for about 10 weeks.
Who? Mitoma?
Yeah. He has missed about 8 or 9 big chances in that period, though. So it's coming.
I thought you were going to say he's been on summer holidays, mate, for 4 of those 8 weeks, 10 weeks.
Football matches, Suj, not necessarily weeks of weeks.
Okay. 10 football matches.
3 months he hasn't scored for then, if that makes you feel better.
Makes me feel worse. Hello, Luton. First game of the season at home as well. There's a Mitoma backlash coming.
That's it, isn't it? I want to be on the right side of Brighton. Particularly on that first day.
The other thing I've noticed when I've been flicking through some drafts, and I have to profess, like I haven't done it a lot, but there are your regular popular content creators posting their drafts and teams and what have you. I've noticed that 8 or 9 of my starting team are in most people's starting team. So there is a lot of overlap. So then it begs the question, okay, how badly can I get hurt by missing out? Who are the players that I'm missing out on that can hurt me really badly? And then do I need to make any adjustments for it, or do I just take it on the chin? And I didn't feel like, from an ownership point of view, that there were particularly that many players that could hurt me badly in the opening few weeks. Of course, if 2 of those players get 10 points, I could fall 10, 15 points behind. But I didn't feel like there was like a 30, 40, 50 point gap that could open up in the first 4 or 5 weeks because of the fact that so many players were the same. When I was looking through ownership, for example, right, my 2 keepers are the 2 most owned keepers in the game. I feel like in historical years, there's been a bigger spread of keepers in terms of ownership. It's a lot narrower this year, whereas you've had a lot more keepers with a lot more ownership. Even defenders, right? Who's going to hurt me? Trippier. He's got quite a high ownership, relatively.
Not in the Twitter bubble, though.
35% though is still...
You barely see him in a team on Twitter.
No, exactly. But still, 35%, second most owned defender in the game.
Yeah.
The other from the top 6, 7 defenders that I don't own is Luke Shaw. But then I've got Onana. And I'm gambling that a lot of people are one or the other. So can Luke Shaw hurt me? Probably not, because Onana's kind of got me covered off there. When you go further down the list, it's like Botman. I think a lot of people won't even start him in the first few weeks. Or Saliba. Well, I think they might be picking Saliba over Gabriel as opposed to doubling up. So I don't think defensively there is anyone that can go big and really hurt me that's got crazy ownership. Even the Chelsea boys. Like Reece James is only at 15%.
I'm afraid to say, guys, as boring as it is, following the template in game week 1 is absolutely okay. It's also okay to go against it, by the way. But it's absolutely okay to go with the popular players at the start. It's very, very simple. These are popular players for a reason.
The midfielders, the big boys that can hurt me, again, that I don't own, is Bruno, Salah or Odegaard. I've got Saka and Martinelli to cover off Odegaard. I've got Rashford to cover off Bruno. And dare I say, I've got Trent to cover off Salah. But those are the 3 midfielders that have in excess of 20% ownership that could be big and could cause me damage in the first 4 weeks, let's say, rather than any individual week. Because the next highest owned midfielder after that is like Eze. Am I scared of Eze hurting my rank in the early days?
I don't know. Have you seen Sheffield United's pre-season results?
No. But again, he's down to like less than 15% is Eze. So it's not... He could do well and not hurt me. I don't see that many teams with him. Ollie Watkins is the only striker above 20% that obviously I don't own.
I think Ollie Watkins will grow. To be honest, the only thing that's off-putting on Ollie Watkins is the fact that it's Newcastle away game week 1. But he's one of them who you look at it after and think, imagine he goes to Newcastle and it finishes 2-2 and he gets a goal and assist. And people don't have him be absolutely steaming him before Everton at home. So...
Yeah, I can understand that. I think it's about holding my nerve a little bit for the first few weeks with the way I'm set up at the moment. But yeah, I think it's kind of a safety net, maybe I would call it, where I looked at it based on ownership and based on big players. There's only a handful that can hurt me. And I'm willing to take that gamble on the other side where someone might go big and make that up. If Matoma does particularly well, even Foden, if he does really well, I don't feel like the gap's going to be big. Do you think the variance between scores in the first few weeks will be quite narrow?
No, I think they'll be quite wide, but I think in terms of the community, it's dependent on how the template does, right? We've had years where the template's absolutely bombed, and many of the engaged players have gone in sort of like game week 4 and have still been at like 3 million rank and stuff like that. If the template flies, everyone flies together and starts well. There's no guarantee, because all those flips you've said, let's not pretend that Saka and Martinelli can't blank and Odegaard and Havertz go off at the weekend and Rashford blanks and Bruno Fernandes does really well, or perhaps less of a template pick, a Mason Mount does really well, for example. Trent and Salah will be well owned across the board if they do really well at Chelsea. Flippies, there will be some Chelsea ownership out there as well with the likes of Jackson, Chilwell, Reece James. So it depends how that template performs. There isn't a consciousness on my side to go with it, other than I'm not prepared to take the gamble against Haaland on captaincy early at the start. Other than that, I pick who I want. But the people that I'm interested in is the players that most people are interested in. We can all have an agreement or a disagreement on someone like Bruno Fernandes, for example. It's not that I don't think he's a good pick. It's just other players I prefer more. That's where I'm at as an example. It's not that I don't want Mo Salah or I don't want Trent, right? Those two and Harry up front are the three players where he's like trying to force something in at the moment. Just on Kane, because I might as well bring him up while we mention him. I don't think it's a good idea to start with him. I really don't. Unless something completely develops in the next 3 to 4 days where it's like, right, that's it, he's staying. Because I don't think it's beyond reason that it'll be Friday, he trains, there's every intention to play, and then Saturday morning it's agreement in place and he's going.
Withdrawn from the squad and stuff.
I don't think that's impossible. It's far better. If Harry Kane is still a Tottenham player this time next week, come back for him, I think.
Yep.
I think starting with him proper risky at this moment in time, and obviously because of what he's done yesterday, and he looked great. That people go, oh my god, he got 4.
Harry scored 4. What did you guys score? I was about to say
5.
5-0.
5-1.
Okay,
but,
fair play.
But the only reason he only got
Shakhtar Donetsk.
Dane Scarlett got the 5th. No, he'd replaced Kane 15 minutes earlier.
Okay, fine. Was it that easy?
Yeah, to be honest, we've had 100 shots in the 3 friendlies.
Yeah.
It was unfortunately another training game, and it sounds like we're going to change the whole team against Barcelona tomorrow night. So that test that I wanted us to have, we're not going to have it. So Tottenham is wildly unpredictable at the moment.
You did say
we haven't played quality opposition in the friendlies.
There's maybe some clamour for some teams. Tottenham's one that you mentioned, maybe. But for me, it's such a wait and see what happens.
I think so. And the first 2 are tough enough, right? It's Brentford and Manchester United. Like structure-wise, the reason for mentioning Kane is structure-wise, again, that 2.5, what can I do with it? Well, I can put Trent in, can't I?
Yeah.
But I've come to the conclusion I don't want to do that. I'd rather have the flexibility than spend all the money. And I can totally get why people want Harry in their teams, because if Harry stays at Tottenham, then he's going to get plenty of goals. It's not really a doubt about it. He can't not in the way that this team's attacking, by the way. He can't not. The idea that we've said maybe Richarlison might even be better suited to play in that position than Kane is primarily because of work off the ball and Richarlison's ability to run in behind.
Kane's just a better player.
but Harry Kane's miles better player. It's as simple as that. And finisher.
Well,
so if Kane gets chances, Kane will score goals, isn't it? Whereas Richarlison might miss them all. So, but then even that's a perfect example. If the deal does go through in the next few days, like I probably do start with Richarlison in FPL.
Your squad, I think most people are aware of Spurs as a watch and wait, because your squad does have very low ownership. You've got not a single defender above 3.3%.
This is what I'm saying.
Nothing.
Most people intelligent, other than that, because he's not going to play. I don't think as it stands. Highly likely to be Emerson and Udogie, a bit of fullback.
Madison's got 12.2% ownership, and he's a good price at 7.5.
Yeah.
Everybody else less than 5%.
He was great yesterday, but not really playing anything.
Less than 5% is crazy. And then
for Son,
for everyone,
I wouldn't go near Son at the moment.
And then Kane,
I could not justify Son over Rashford in any way.
Kane has less ownership, James, than his FPL price. His price is 12.5. His ownership's 12.4. Again, with the speculation, you can understand that. So I don't think at the moment we're seeing people taking a punt on Spurs yet.
The other thing for me is I don't think I can justify 4.5 more for Kane over Watkins. Is actually even if it was locked in that he's going to stay. No, I don't think I could at the moment.
I'd need Haaland to be injured to free up a load of money. Then I'd need to not be tempted to use that money on Salah, and then I'd come to Kane. But because the midfield options, there's so many, I think you can go Kane over Salah if you are stacked in the midfield.
There's loads. There's 15, 20 really good options in the midfield area, and yet I might not start with 5. Just because at the start I think I want 3 forwards. So even though there's not much choice, but then it almost defines it even easier for me.
You were hinting at Brentford as well, that you think people might clamour towards as we get towards the start.
Yeah,
Ray is still potentially on his way out.
I wanted to talk about outcome processing. I don't know if someone will come up with better terminology from that, and that's in terms of understanding outcomes. But before I do, I wanted to mention one more thing about Money in the Bank, Suj.
Money in the Bank.
I'm genuinely, and I don't think I'll do it, I'm genuinely considering bench boosting on a serious. Purely because 2.5 in the bank. Wild card in 2, straight off it. I spoke about this as strategy. Come straight into the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea once the information is clearer, and maybe even others like Tottenham, like Brentford, who obviously I feel like Brentford, Tottenham and Chelsea, Liverpool on Sunday are probably coin flips of matches, to be totally honest, in terms of could easily go either way. And to make it a bench boost, what do I have to do with my team? Right, so I move a 4.0 defender to like Luke Shaw. I'll probably go 2 4.5 goalkeepers, and then in the midfield I can even upgrade to like a 5.0 who's got one good fixture at the weekend. Say someone like Jeff Schlupp, who's going to play left wing for Palace at Sheffield United.
Punt on Declan Rice, go on.
That'd be stupid. As if I'm wasting that on an Arsenal player, mate.
That's true.
But
that's the only disadvantage.
Literally, from what I'm likely to start with, to put myself into a bench boost position, it's no drama at all. I'm making like 4 changes or so. And you could even argue from that, well, you don't need to wildcard afterwards. And it might even be that as well, but I wouldn't be comfortable having heavy kind of bench going forward and stuff. But so I was looking as an idea for a bench boost at the moment, it would be something like Sam Johnston, Schlupp, John Stones, and possibly even like Kieran Trippier as like a bench boost for this week. Because that puts someone like Trips interesting again. And that's what I'm saying. If I look at that and I go, can that get me my mythical total of 16 points in game 1? It probably only needs one of them to go off. And you know from what we did on the chip strategy pod, and I said it really might fall about that bench boost in like game week 37, where it's like rotation City, particularly if it looks like it's going to be top 5 for the Champions League, and say 2nd, 3rd, 4th is sewn up, for example. It might just be like completely whack. This is the first time I get asked it every year, and no one's asked me this year. And this year, I'm genuinely thinking about it.
I am 100% behind Play It Your Way. Do whatever you see.
I don't think I'll do it.
But if you do it, you just know that you're going to give me anxiety.
Ruin the chip strategy podcast for the rest of the year.
You're going to give me anxiety. Like, just thinking about you doing it is already making me worried for you.
What you worrying for me? I'm going to start betting on everybody else. I've got 15 players.
Yeah, but if it goes badly wrong, you'll...
What's badly wrong?
Regret it for the rest of the season.
I won't regret it. It's gone.
Anything less than 10 points would be badly wrong.
Do you think if those 4 players start, they get less than 10 points?
Stones, Trippier, Schlupp, Sam Johnson.
Yeah. And that would be, for example, starting something like Chilwell, Gabriel and Estupiñán as like the other 3 defenders as an example.
Yeah. I don't know enough about Sheffield United. I don't mind that double up, but it is away from home.
Yeah,
and
I know.
They will
that
want
could
to be
easily be 1-0 Sheffield United.
Yeah, they want to be back in the Premier League. They're going to enjoy it. Like, we know that their stadium can be pretty hostile. You saw it last year. So I think the crowd will be up for it. 3:00 on a Saturday. I don't think it's as straightforward, but it's statistically, you'd back Palace for a clean sheet.
Put it this way.
And even Newcastle.
I would, if someone said to me, what's your chance of bench boosting in game week 1? Every previous season, I'd have said none. I think at the moment it's about 15-20%.
Why would you go trips with Watkins? Then you're kind of, you don't like doing that either. You're pitting your striker against.
But I wouldn't go Watkins.
Oh, then you'd sack off Watkins.
Go with something else. To be honest, I think I'd go with Solanke. Home to you.
Oh, you are playing it your way if you're doing that. I'll tell you that.
But that's what I'm saying. If a wild card off it, it really would be a different way to go. But all I'm saying, I'm not ruled it out. I'm going to do a piece for Advanced on Wednesday and look at it properly and come to a conclusion. 80% I won't do it. But it's the sheer, I've got this money, I don't want to spend it. Should I take advantage of this? The other thing you have to flip is with the bench boost, and we see it every year, we get stuck down this road, don't we? We go, I've got a plan for this, and is this player at the end, is he going to play twice and stuff? Effective later in the season, potentially putting more money into the actual 11 to play with and not worrying about it so much. Or I can do it earlier and have rotation of players where I go, okay, this player's good, he's got single fixtures, I can bench him in the big double if it happens in 37 or so.
Okay.
It's merging together the fact that I'm sitting there with the money in the bank and looking at strategy later in the season. And listen, there is no way of sitting here right now and saying if 37 is going to be a good double or not in terms of the actual fixtures and stuff. But we looked at the probabilities of those fixtures, if big clubs did well in the cups, and it don't look great. And like I said, if they've got nothing to play for, which is really conceivable, then it's rotation city, isn't it? You're hoping Tottenham's got a double and Kane's still playing. Yep. But that's not relative to your bench boost anyway, right? The only team I looked at who would really have a great double in 37 probably is Everton. And what am I relying on Everton to get to an FA Cup semi-final?
By then. Sorry, Sean.
But even still, what am I doing? I'm relying on what Everton or Nottingham Forest to reach an FA Cup semi-final for that possibility to get a really good-looking bench players for a bench boost. I don't know, Suj. The more I think about it, the closer I get to talking myself into it.
So you mentioned this phrase called outcome possibilities.
Yeah, it needs a better name.
I'm going to come up with a better name, but you need to explain what you mean. It's interesting you talked about a handful of teams from which I only have one player.
Outcome processing.
Outcome processing.
So what I advise people to do is just consider what happens if. So I think that there are 5 teams, and you could debate only 4, but there are 5 teams who have significantly better game week 2 fixtures than game week 1. Chelsea and Liverpool, who play each other. Chelsea go to West Ham. It's not looking great at the moment. Save that for Tottenham on Wednesday. Liverpool obviously have the Bournemouth at home fixture. Villa go from St James's to Everton at home in game week 2. Burnley away game week 3. Forest obviously have Arsenal away, and then Sheffield United at home in game week 2. And Wolves, yes, sure, it's Brighton at home in game week 2. You can flip that. But the reason I included them in is, what if Wolves do win at Old Trafford next Monday night and a Matthias Nunes at 5.0 goes there and scores twice? Well, we know what happens under that circumstance, right? People can't buy him. Yeah. So I think it's important to consider with those teams, not so much Wolves and not so much Forest, but even with Forest, what if Forest go to Arsenal and even lose 3-2 and Gibbs White scores twice? And then
I'll be doing well in Sky.
Yeah, but he'd blank against Sheffield United, right?
Oh, mate, and that's when we want to captain him.
But it's probably more relevant, I think, particularly with Villa, Liverpool, Chelsea, because those 3 teams there is good interest in anyway. And I think if you're going without your Watkins and Diabys or even the 4.5s, is to sit there and ask yourself, what happens if these guys do well at the weekend? How am I going to feel about it afterwards? So Villa smashed Newcastle 3-0 last time they played them. I realise it was at Villa Park.
The season, and there was
I get all
Europe
that.
For Villa on the line.
Yeah, but it was for Newcastle as well.
Yeah, but they were much more semi-secure in top 4 than Villa were.
And I'm sure that won't happen again. But imagine if it does. Imagine if Villa did go to St James's Park, win 3-0. Matty Cash plays as this flying, forward-thinking right back. Moussa Diaby's coming off the flank, joining Ollie Watkins up front. Those 3 do really well, and then you're walking into Everton at home, Burnley away as the next 2. And it's almost asking yourself in a principle now, how will I feel if that happens? What do you want to do? If the reason I highlight them as the example is, if it goes the other way and Newcastle win 3-0 and do the same to Villa, are you going to, oh my God, sugar, I've got to get Isak now. They've got Man City away next week. So principally, in your mind, it's going to work differently. Chelsea, Liverpool are the main 2 in the sense of to play each other. As I said, it's kind of a coin flip. How are you going to feel, though, if Liverpool go to Stamford Bridge and steamroller them? Are you going to feel that anxiety where I've got to get Liverpool players? So I think it's almost worth processing in your mind and just principally thinking, right, if Chelsea win 3-0 and look really good, do I need to react to that? Am I happy to react to that? Is it going to force me into things? Similar, even more so if it goes the other way around with the Liverpool players, right? If Liverpool win really well at Chelsea and look great, which is more likely of the 2 currently, how are you going to feel about it after the game?
I feel like Chelsea's actually more attractive than Liverpool, because Liverpool then go into a decent fixture with Bournemouth at home.
Yeah.
But then they've got Newcastle and Villa. Whereas Chelsea after West Ham have got Luton and Forest. So I'm like, over 3 games, you'd take those Chelsea, West Ham, Luton, Forest over Liverpool's 3, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Villa, all day long.
Let's put this in more simple terms.
And then Bournemouth after that.
Most people listening and watching to this right now have probably not got Mo Salah. Ask yourself this question. If Mo Salah scores a hat-trick at Stamford Bridge at the weekend, what are you going to do?
Congratulate the owners and let it go.
And that's fine. But what I'm saying is process that in your mind now rather than the panic next week after it happens.
Yeah.
That's it.
And of course, like, depending on what kind of manager you are, some people are going to want to go Saturday night, Sunday night when they see on FPL statistics or wherever you look at your price changes. Like, as soon as 0.1 start going in opposite directions, people move quick.
Be absolutely certain of this. If Haaland blanks on Friday night and Mo Salah gets a hat-trick on Sunday at Stamford Bridge, and then City have got Newcastle and Liverpool have got Bournemouth, there's going to be -4s flying about everywhere to put Mo Salah in their teams. Mm-hmm. Process that now as a thought process. What are you going to do? Because I know what I'm going to do.
Same as me.
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing. But I like it. I don't like your outcome
processing.
Processing as a phrase.
Outcome hypothesis.
Ifs and buts might be maybes.
Outcome reactions.
Yeah, no, but I get what you're trying to say.
When you figure it out, we'll call the podcast this.
Yeah. What you're trying to say is, if this, then that. Like, if this happens, then that.
It's considered the possibilities, and at certain price points, this is even more think about. So, Mitoma, right, has big ownership and completely understandable why, right? But if Mitoma blanks against Luton, which is possible, of course it is. There are how many other good 6.5 million midfielders? He just needs one. He just needs one to do really well. If Eze was to get a hat-trick at Sheffield United and Mitoma blanks, it isn't going to matter a jot that Eze has Arsenal next.
Yeah.
The masses will go and get Eze. And I think you have to, at that where there's sort of like good competition in, say, the 6.5, you've got to be aware of that even more. So that is more difficult to say no to in a roundabouts way than, right, Salah's going to break the structure of my team as an example. If chances are, for most people, if you don't start with him and you want to get him in, he's probably going to take a -4 to get him in. Mitoma to Eze, flip, no problem. And people are doing it early as well, right? Say they both play Saturday. Eze's got hat-trick at Sheffield United. Mitoma's blanked. You think that's not going to be changing over by price by like Sunday night or so? Patience important. But that's it. That's processing now. If Eze does well at Sheffield United, am I going to go and buy him and panic about it? No. It's got Arsenal next. It's like start with him or leave it, right?
You mentioned 4 teams as key for game week 1.
Yep.
Arsenal, City, United, Brighton.
Yep.
Barring Trent, my whole team is Arsenal, City, Brighton, United.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it. I don't have any other interest in any other teams.
When you look at the reality is, and it's all well and good wanting to oppose these teams, and you can, but I don't think that anybody is going to be listening to this and not have something from those 4 teams. Even if it's just Haaland, or like me, just Rashford. Like those 4 teams, I don't know how you could completely ignore them at the moment. And that's quite simply, they're 4 good teams, and they've got a great set of 3 fixtures. Arsenal with Forest, Palace, Fulham. Brighton have Luton, Wolves, West Ham. City have Sheffield United, Newcastle after Burnley. Who's the one I'm missing? Man United is Wolves, Tottenham away, which is really good for the offensive players, may I suggest, particularly the likes of Rashford. And then they've got Forest at home themselves. That's it, isn't it? That's why you've got a template. You've got 4 good teams with outstanding fixtures. If Liverpool had the 3 fixtures that, say, Arsenal are starting with, we'd be making a lot more effort to have at least one of Salah or Trent in our team.
Correct.
That's why there's a clear template. It's good teams, good fixtures. And I think it's important to decide what we want from those particular 4 teams. So I think should we start with Arsenal? You and I are in agreement, aren't we?
On the 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we discussed this on the wrap-up pod that we did for Patreons when we were looking through all the correspondence week. I'm Saka, Martinelli and Gabriel. I think you have to have one of their defensive players. I didn't watch the Community Shield. I'm not even
I wouldn't worry about it.
Taking much attention to it. But I did hear that Martinelli wasn't great, which I thought was good because then less people will want to steam into him. And he's the differential amongst the
He's not
midfielders.
playing Man City this week.
No, exactly. That's the other thing,
He's not going against Cole Walker this week.
And I think Arsenal are going to be really good defensively, especially with the addition of Declan Rice. So I think you have to have a defender. Take your pick, but I've gone Gabriel, straightforward and simple and guaranteed minutes. And I've got Martinelli and Saka coming in from the flanks.
Yeah, it'll be the same for me. The only thing I have considered a little bit, It's basically 4 defenders I really want at the moment, right? Chilwell, Stones, Estupiñán and Gabriel. That's probably where I'm at, unless I decide to force Trent in, and I don't think I will. And you can make a case I have an interest in Luke Shaw as well. If I go down the bench boost route, then I am very interested in Luke Shaw, for example. But I have considered that I probably want 3 of those 4, perhaps. I can live without 1. And Gabriel's not the one I'd want to live without. But if I decide to go down this Pickford-Turner route and the transfer's not gone through, do I consider going Turner as the 3rd Arsenal? It's proper gambly, that. But I have thought about it.
Too much upside, Nottingham Forest at home to do that.
But upside. But the similar applies with the 3 other defenders.
Yeah,
it's the same.
True.
There's upside in all of them as well.
Yeah. United?
Yeah, Saka, Martinelli for me. It's not that Odegaard's a bad pick or Havertz is a bad pick. I want, for me, definitely the 2 best ones for me offensively are Saka and Martinelli. I think, by the way, if Havertz does play false 9 again, that's not bad for Saka and Martinelli. No, I don't think
they'll be running on beyond.
Yeah.
United, I've got Onana over Luke Shaw. I think his ownership is getting particularly high now. I think he'll be a good goalkeeper. And again, I think Manchester United will keep a good number of clean sheets this year. I know Gary was saying, can you rely on them to keep clean sheets? I think they'll do all right, They are reliant on keeping their defenders like Varane and stuff fit, which has always been a bit of a challenge. But I think they'll be okay. So Onana, Rashford are the 2 that I've gone with. I think Bruno is a good price. And I think there will be other attacker that will stand out. I've got a sneaky, it could be Anthony, at 7 million. Has Rasmus Højlund been added yet?
The obvious alternative to Schlupp in terms of that potential bench boost right now as it stands is Garnacho.
Is he? Do you think he'll start?
Yeah.
Okay. But I do think there'll be another Manchester United attacker that will step up. I'd have gone with Anthony over Garnacho, for example.
Yeah, but no, I wouldn't.
Sancho's still 7 million.
I wouldn't advise Garnacho necessarily, but I do think he'll start game week 1 because we know Højlund definitely will not. He's got a knock surge, so he won't be involved for a little bit. He needs match fitness, is what the club has said and stuff. So yeah, Garnacho probably does start. It probably means Rashford through the middle. I think Onana's a great choice. I think he's worth the saving against Luke Shaw. I'll take no notice of the goal they conceded at the weekend. Manager will take responsibility for that rather than blame the goalkeeper. Have you seen it? He got beat from the halfway line, basically.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. Rodri had a good effort in the Community Shield as well. What are you shaking your head about, Nico? Yeah, what's his name? I think Onana's a very reasonable get. I think it depends how you look at it. So I keep looking at the first 3 and thinking, it's 2 clean sheets there.
Yeah.
Wolves and Forest at home. Can't look beyond it and think, yeah, it's definitely 2 clean sheets. But if I look across the 5, Tottenham away, I'm not sure I fancy anyone to come to White Hart Lane and get a clean sheet at the moment. Because we are going to go for it. I'm not saying we won't get battered, but we are going to go for it. Arsenal away, you wouldn't fancy a clean sheet. And do we ever fancy anyone against Brighton in game week 5 for a clean sheet? No. So suddenly it's gone from 2-3 to 2-5, and then it only needs Wolves or Forest to score, and it's probably worth me saving money.
Then you go into Burnley, Palace, Brentford, Sheffield United.
Get that?
I don't want to be making goalkeeper changes.
And so I get that.
I'm just leaving him as a set and forget.
It's going to depend on Turner, I think. Because if it doesn't go through, then yeah, I'll probably revert back to Onana as well. I think Onana is probably a better call than Pickford, but that Pickford-Turner rotation is unbelievable. For 10 weeks, the hardest game you'll have is Brentford.
Any love for Mason Mount? He's historically...
Gary wasn't keen.
Other than last year, where his numbers did drop off a little bit, he's 150 points either side of for the 3 previous years, give or take. It's not bad for 7 million. Last year was bad, but the previous year, 11 goals, 11 assists, so 22 attacking returns at Chelsea, granted. Yeah, I don't know. If he hits form, he does take some set pieces. I think he might be all right.
I don't know about set piece. We're going to get off Bruno Fernandes and Luke Shaw on a set piece. I don't think so.
Maybe.
Don't see it, mate. I don't think he's a bad choice per se, but I think I would have needed to see something in these friendlies or hear something from Manchester United fans to feel quite bullish or encouraged about saving on Mason Mount versus Bruno, and it's just not there.
I wouldn't recommend starting with him, but I do think he will become an interesting asset at some point.
I think with United, there are 4 players that play. So Nana, Shaw, Fernandes, Rashford, and they're all reasonable picks. Like if you're sitting there now and you're thinking, no, I definitely want to go for the upside of Luke Shaw in terms of offensive, he's going to be on some set pieces, etc., then that's absolutely fine. I think it's literally those four players with United. At the moment, it's just Rashford for me. But yeah, thinking about that bench boost more, Garnacho over Schlupp. Yeah, what am I thinking? That's obvious, isn't it?
Man City, I think obviously Stones has got very high ownership now. He's really crept up. So you're almost kind of covering yourself off a little bit with John Stones at 5.5. He's at 28.3% ownership. Next best is Ruben Diaz at 7. It's quite a big jump.
Can we just say that when City demolished Arsenal in April, played a 4-4-2, and they basically played that again yesterday, and they haven't played it in any other game in the last 3-4 months. So can we just bear that in mind, that yesterday, particularly for Man City, does not mean a lot in terms of the team against Burnley. However, there unfortunately remains enough doubt on Foden. And the biggest thing for me, to be honest, of all the factors on Foden is the return of Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah,
and knowing that
he'd be fit.
Knowing that he's in contention to play game week 1. They can play him there, they can play Alvarez there, they can pop Bernardo in there, they could push Kovacic further forward. If you're asking me right now, I think Phil Foden will start on Friday night. And I think he'll start in one of those 8 positions or start on the right. But it's Kevin De Bruyne primarily is what's made me a little bit, I've begun to waver on it. And I just don't think I need to take the risks. So just is how I feel at the moment. It's almost like me and Johnny said last week, we both agreed, it's like I hate myself more if I don't go with it. But at the same time, there's enough other good choices that it doesn't feel like it has to be a necessity. I'm not saying I won't go with Foden, but I don't know if I need to take the risk. There's also the factoring in that they've got Seville in the Super Cup next Wednesday, which is 3 days before the Newcastle game. And I don't know, is Foden start all 3 of them? That's not to say, I could be lucky. He could start the 2 Premier League games and not start against Seville. He could start all 3. But, yeah, I think he's going to have an absolutely brilliant season. I think he's going to tear it up. I really do. But I don't know if it's going to be enough for me to justify going with him in game week 1 as it stands right now.
Brighton. Estepinian's obviously got over 50% ownership, mate.
Yeah, Estupiñán is kind of a non-negotiable for me, certainly for at least the start. I think with him, he's another one that really falls into that outcome line in terms of what happens if Luton go and surprise and they win 2-1 at Brighton and Estupiñán gets booked and he walks out of that with a 0-pointer? How many 4.5 or 5-0 defenders do you need to get a 15-pointer for people to move? Not many when he's got that sort of ownership, right? So I think Estupiñán, that ownership is so high that you have to be conscious of what he's doing and their fixture swings particularly. They have it gets difficult for them from 4 when they play Newcastle, but it is still a home game. Interestingly, they've got a difficult run from, I think, 7 as well. So they've got Newcastle, Man United, they've got Bournemouth at home, and then 7, 8, 9, they've got Villa, Liverpool, Man City. Then they've got a great run again from 10. So Sam was saying about maybe selling when you get to like 7. I'm like, yeah, Sam, if you've held this long, it's only 3 more games, and then there's an even better run for Brighton than they start this season with. So I think Estupiñán needs constant evaluation, but I definitely want him game week 1. Mitoma, I'm not massively high on, actually. The problem is, I know that I definitely want Brighton offensive, and he's just about the only one I can look at right now and be very, very confident that he starts.
Yeah,
I think it's going to become an absolute minefield. They've supposedly agreed a deal for Mohamed Kudus as well, who's a great player. I can foresee him playing on the right for Brighton, actually, and perhaps taking over from Solly March. I think the way the 2 forward players come towards the ball and the wide players hold higher and then go in and dart in behind, I think Kudus can play that role for Brighton. He can also play in a centre forward position, a 10 position. The one position he doesn't really profile in his left wing.
Okay.
The Mitoma's competition really is Simon Adingra, who I watched play against Brentford in pre-season, and he just looks an absolute brilliant talent. But I'd be amazed if he started over Mitoma in 1. All the rest are doubtful in terms of who starts up front. If you had to pin me right now, I'd say probably João Pedro and Welbeck. And therefore, João Pedro at 5.5. We know he's on the pens now after yesterday. Feels like something I want to punt at the start. But he's definitely not definite for me. Did that make sense? He's definitely not definite.
Yeah.
No way. He's not. That's going to need some real thought. It's just difficult to look beyond that opening fixture against Luton and not know what it could be. Because they're not ready, I don't think. They could go off, is the point, isn't it? Yep. And it feels like one again. If I've left that money in the bank, can I just shove him into Nunez or Jackson straight away, for example, if that's what I want to do for game week 2? That's kind of the thinking at the moment. Yeah, I think Mitoma's going to be really difficult not to go with, just because the others, it's so cloudy. As I said, I'm not massive on him. It's Stupinan I don't want to fight against game week 1. And I think Pedro, unfortunately, is the third. He's going to be so popular this week, Pedro. So popular.
Should we answer some of these questions that we've had in on Twitter, James?
All right.
Before we do, what do we have in our schedule for this week as we lead up to game week 1, Friday night?
So fairly unanimously, people wanted on the People's Poll game week 1 predicted lineups. So I might do that as a solo. It's kind of, I might do it as something quite short. It's just there for you in terms of predicted lineups, and I'll add a couple of bit of thoughts to that because I think you're busy, Clayton's busy, so I might have to do it on my own. Wednesday, Sky Fantasy, big podcast, mate. Thursday, I'll be streaming 12 o'clock, so if you want to jump on the stream, ask me some questions, we'll go out as an audio as well. And then Friday, we're going to go through final drafts and final decisions properly. We'll get that out for you as early as possible Friday. And Deadline stream returns on YouTube Friday. What time's Deadline? 6:30, isn't it?
So 8 o'clock games.
5:30 on YouTube. On Patreon this week, we've got a Q&A today. Tomorrow, Clayton's doing the transfer window show with me. Wednesday, we've got Tottenham, which I'll reflect on, obviously, Tottenham's performance in Barcelona and the game against Shakhtar, and we need to find out what's going on, if David Moyes might be leaving West Ham United imminently. Yes, that's a possibility. Thursday, we're going to do the zombie and differential selection, so we look at what would be a best dead team for the season, and also look at players at under 10% owned. That, by the way, Surge spoiler, is going to be nearly impossible to spend all the 100 million. And on Friday, we'll do our first game week preview show, the differential show of the season. If you want to support the show, www.patreon.com/planetfpl. Please support the show if you've enjoyed the content and think you got value for money with 23 podcasts last week.
James sold it very well. If not, if Nico, you can just snip it out. Sam from our Brighton correspondent sales pitch on Patreon and just clip it in, please, if we don't mind.
If you want to join the basic tier, which is like buying us a coffee, and you don't want anything extra, do that. If you want a little bit extra and you want to get into Slack and access to my transfer planner and one extra pod a week, join Basic Plus. Intermediate Plus, you get all the pods, little bit of extra advanced content, and advanced tier, you get the works, all the extra Twitter stories, chip talk, team news stream, talking tactics, unanswered cues, all coming up this week.
Nice. James, what's going on? You've been a naughty boy.
Oh, what have I done now?
It says on the BBC homepage right now, it's just popped up in front of me.
Harry Kane has signed a new 12-year contract.
James sent off for snap.
Oh, shit.
And it means Lauren James, not James Linden.
Unfortunately, we are recording during the England game. Is it 0-0? Must be 0-0
must be about
to go to extra time.
85 minutes on the clock, and it says, James, that you have stamped on someone.
Oh, Lauren, what have you done? She's had a Rooney moment.
Do you
know what?
Lauren James' show of petulance results in her seeing red.
No.
She's stamped on someone.
Okay, fine. Come on, England.
Keep it moving. Some of these questions we've had on Twitter, let's rattle through.
Go on,
Jimmy the Claret.
Yeah.
Who would win in a correspondence Royal Rumble? I don't think we've met all correspondents face to face.
No, that's true.
And there's quite a few new ones. I mean,
I reckon Rory's quite tall, actually.
Is he?
I reckon he can handle himself.
Yeah, quite possibly. I can.
Johnny would be a good all-rounder, I think.
He's young. He's in his late 20s, mid to late 20s. So he'd have the speed and athleticism, maybe. I'm not backing Richard.
Ricky
Saunders.
Boxer, isn't he?
Well, I don't know if he is. All I know is that his profile picture on WhatsApp is.
Ricky was a boxer, yeah.
Yeah. So I would back him.
I don't know if it had the endurance for a Royal Rumble though. Sorry, Rick.
I'm trying to think who else might get. I've heard Gary Robinson's quite tall, isn't he? He's 6+, isn't he? 6 foot plus.
Do you know what? Everyone looks tall to me. It was nice to met one of our patrons, Matt Bryant, at Tottenham yesterday. He bought his boy. He's like, let's have a picture together. I was like, great. I'm not the smallest person in the photo. This makes a change. No, I think Ricky will knock everyone out, but Royal Rumble, no. I'm gonna go Johnny. I think. City win everything
Matt
anyway,
wants to
don't
know
they?
which club has made the signings with the most upside so far.
Si's a good shout as well. You have to repeat it. I didn't hear a word of that question.
Which clubs
Si's a good shout.
have made the signings with the most upside so far?
Signings with the most upside?
It's got to be Arsenal, surely.
Is that an FPL-laced question or not?
No, I don't think it is.
Yeah, it probably is Arsenal with Timber, Rice and Havertz, and if Raya comes in as well, which we think will probably happen. I think Ramsdale will stay in goal, by the way, to start with, but it's not worth the risk for fantasy. Yeah, Arsenal. What about West Ham?
Well, I see. We're not buying any players. It's still it's such a we'll talk about it on Tottenham. Stupid thing for fans to get hooked on buying players.
Oh,
it's the dumbest thing.
I told you, it's like a 39th game. How people treat it mentally.
So weird. I mean, you speak from experience, right? When you sold Gareth Bale, and you talked about it on this show numerous times, you went and pissed all that money away.
We didn't quite really, because we did get Christian Eriksen.
Okay, but mostly pissed it away. Like, sometimes it's not, spending money is not a good strategy. And if you actually look inside your clubs quite often, do you trust the people that are making the decisions on who to buy? And I bet you 50% of the time the answer is no. Jim Slinius, who is Man City's second goalkeeper?
Okay. So I would be very surprised if Edison didn't start on Friday. As far as I'm concerned, Ortega plays the cup games for Man City, and a showpiece game at Wembley would probably, in Guardiola's mind, count as one yesterday. So I would expect Edison to play at Burnley. I'd be extremely surprised. I mean, look, if Ortega was to become City's new number one, then it's end of story as terms of goalkeeper and stuff. Just literally go 2 4.0s, wouldn't you? And he'd be one, and you start him every week.
I don't know. I've got 3 outfield City players, so it'd take a bit of thought. But then I could go to Chelsea instead of Stones and then chuck him in goal. But I'm with you.
As it stands, by the way, I think George Shelvey will start in goal for Forest. And I don't think it's got a price.
Okay.
So it's not impossible to get 2 4.0 Forest keepers. And we have the Danny
Not
Ward.
Havertz.
He had an absolute nightmare against Rennes last Wednesday. Really bad. You'd have to question anyway why Luton didn't want to buy him when they had an option to do so and desperately needed the goalkeeper themselves. And Shelvey played in goal at Frankfurt at the weekend, kept a clean sheet and made a few good saves. So I think he'll start in goal. So it's not impossible to even get Shelvey and Turner as 2 4.0s maybe. Which is Ward Everson all over again. Just a reminder that in the first 6 weeks, Nottingham Forest do go to Stamford Bridge, the Etihad, the Emirates, and somewhere else rough. It's Anfield, maybe. They've got 2 more away games and 1 more away game, and then they go somewhere else really rough. Their away fixtures are horrendous. You ain't going to want to look at that in goal, I don't think. I wouldn't suddenly think, oh my God, there's 2 4.0 Forest keepers. That's what I'm going to do. I wouldn't. And they may yet add another one anyway. We still think there's still interest in Dean Henderson, which is the caveat to the turnover. We think he's still injured. It's weird. But that, as I said earlier, that Forest cover for the 3 bad Everton games is really good.
Last question of the show, James. Take it one step back, a bit philosophical here, because a few people have asked about this, especially because of the 8 minutes was added yesterday, wasn't it, in the Community Shield?
Oh, yeah. It was longer.
What impact do you think this is going to have on the game, and should we be conscious of it? A few people asked questions about it, but specifically with the lens of, does that mean there's less chance of clean sheets because there's going to be way more goals flying in late and stuff? And it quite often does happen that goals fly in the 94th, 95th, 96th minute.
We think in our minds that like there's goals in added time like every week, and that's not really the case. So I don't think it will make a huge amount of difference.
It's not affecting your decision making anyway.
People will adjust to it as well. people will adjust to it. I was watching Sunderland Ipswich yesterday, the end of that game. Sunderland were down to 10 men. Started throwing everything at Ipswich and scored with about 5 minutes to go. And then the board goes up 13 minutes added time. But it didn't change the pattern as such. It just meant things became a little less panicked and a little less rushed, because rather than having 4 minutes left and you've maybe got maximum 2 chances left, I mean, 13 minutes you can create 4 or 5 good chances, right? So it wasn't like it ramped it up quite so much.
Whenever I used to go to games, you get to 90 minutes and the board go up. Say it's 6 minutes. I just reverse the clock to 84 minutes. That's the way I think about it. I don't think of it as 91, 92, 93. I think, okay, just play back like it's the 84th minute all of a sudden, and there's still 6 minutes, and then you're still working towards your 90. I don't know if players do it that way. Probably not, to be honest with you. You get to squeaky bum time just hanging on.
Players will very, very quickly get used to it, and obviously a lot of the top players would have already got used to it at the World Cup. So
start of the World Cup.
It wouldn't be surprised, particularly if at the start, that you had a few sort of 98th, 99th minute goals and stuff, and then it'll probably calm back down. I don't think it'll make a huge difference. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Take Bruno, right? So Bruno, it feels like he plays every minute, every game. People saying, well, you be conscious now. Bruno's not playing 95 minutes. He's playing 100 minutes, right? That 5 minutes across a season, what's he going to get? In theory, what, an extra 2 football matches? In theory, possibly. But if he's going to play 100 minutes regularly, it might actually start taking him off a little bit earlier when they're comfortable and stuff. So, as ever with these narratives, I really think you can spin them either way. I think it's possibly a little bit more for substitutes, in the sense that, take a Foden. Say Foden comes on with half hour to go at Burnley. Well, it might be 40 minutes to go. So yeah, it might be that players like that, we might have more substitutes scored this year. In terms of clean sheets, I don't think it made a huge difference at all. Like, Arsenal got Forest this week. Let's say Arsenal probably 3 up going into injury time. It made a difference whether there's 5 minutes added on or 15 minutes added on. It's probably not.
Fair play. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Planet FPL. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening to the podcast, because we've got a bumper week of content coming at you as we lead up to game week 1. And we'll be back at you tomorrow with a rundown of the teams and potential starting lineups. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. As always, play it your way and be nice to each other, please. Cue music, please, man child.